Okay, now in order to complete this practical, when you go to the class site, you will notice there are two compressed files that are there, right? So one of them says no materials and one says with materials. The one with no material will only come up as black and white, and the one with materials will show the full materials for the model that you are given of the guardhouse, right? So what's going to happen is that you need to download this file, and after you download the file, the zip file will be on your computer, right? And when that file reaches your computer, you're going to download and extract all the contents into a folder. So this is what it will look like, and these are all the assets that are required to show the max file with materials, right? Here you will find the actual max file, right? Now this is a max 2016 file, so it will open in Studio Max 2016 or older. So I'm going to open this file now. Okay, the file is open. Now I'm using Max 2018. When the file is open, this is what it looks like. Now this is a scene that you are given. You can see that it has a guardhouse, it has a representation of the surroundings using some simple models that comes built in within Max. It also has some moving cars. So if right now I hit the play button, which is located here, and that's right there. If I hit the play button, you will see the scene actually plays. You will see cars driving. There we go. And it plays for about 30 seconds or thereabouts. You can rotate while it's playing by clicking the rotate button, the orbit button, which is located here. And I am zooming in and out using the mouse wheel button. When I'm orbiting, notice that I'm orbiting within this yellow circle. Right? And notice the timeline going as time increases. And the timeline will go all the way to 2000 frames, and then it will repeat from the beginning. At any point I can press pause, move forward, or back in time. Okay, so let's take a quick tour of 3ds Max. Most of you were probably introduced to Max in previous years. However, this is a quick refresher. Now the main areas that you're seeing on screen would be the main toolbar, which is located up top, and the main toolbar is this here. Then next there is the World Explorer, which is located here. Then the timeline, which we were just introduced to here. And most importantly, the control panel, which is here, which is the main section, where most of the tools are located in Max. Also, some additional areas. This area here, which has all the viewports manipulation buttons, right? So again, we have main toolbar, Scene Explorer, it shows us all the objects in our scene. The timeline, this is for animation purposes. Then we have the control panel and viewport manipulation. And how could I forget, this window that you're actually looking through is the viewport. So notice that in order to select an object in Max, we must use the selection tool. The selection tool is this tool right here. Sorry, that's this tool right here. That's the selection tool. Now notice it's already highlighted. So as it is now, I am able to click on a person and I'm able to select them. Now, as in most 3D programs, you can rotate, scale, and transform your object that you click on. Now notice when I click on this object, all the elements that make up this object are highlighted here. So this is the object that I have highlighted: female 007, skin 001. And because I've highlighted this object, I can now manipulate it. So one of the first ways of manipulation are moving, rotating, or scaling. These are some of the most basic manipulations that you can do to an object. So if I now choose the move tool, I'm able to move that object using the UCS, which is located here. So let's choose another object like this gate column. Notice it highlights fence grill work 149. I'm able to move the object, but for you, you won't be able to move it because I've actually locked this object in place so that we won't accidentally manipulate the scene. So that's why this object doesn't move. Now additionally, I can rotate the object, and notice when I'm rotating it along one of these axes. And I can also scale this object. If I scale from the center, it gets bigger or smaller. Right? I can just undo that, so everything is back to normal. So let's talk quickly about viewport manipulation. Now this is the viewport that you're actually looking through. At the top of the viewport, you can see the name of the viewport, what view you're looking on, and also here tells you the type of shading that is being done in the viewport. Additionally, there are some additional viewport options you can get from here. So for example, this is my perspective viewport. I could click on this and change it to top view. Now in manipulating the viewport, you can use these icons that are located over here. Now these icons manipulate the viewport by zooming. So this is the zoom tool you can use here. Additionally, you can zoom with the mouse wheel. Then there is the rotate tool or orbit tool, which is located here. Now if I orbit while in top view, notice that I will get an orthographic projection here and not a perspective projection. So hence, if I want to go back into perspective view, I would need to click the view of the viewport and change it to perspective. And then notice when I orbit, that is a perspective. Now when I select objects in my scene, as was mentioned before, let me go to my selection tool. Notice that those objects are highlighted in my world outliner. Now the world outliner is a list of all the objects in your scene, and it can be viewed in two different ways. Currently, the world outliner is viewed as a hierarchy list. Additionally, it can be viewed as layers. So these are the two ways that you can view the world outliner, which shows you all the objects in your scene. So I can switch to layer mode, and what it will do is show me based on the layers that were created, and not necessarily based on the hierarchy of the objects. So if I close this up, I can see that I can turn on or off the people, the guardhouse model, or guardhouse elements, or ground elements rather, the foliage or most of the foliage, and the fence, and so forth. So when you select, that object becomes highlighted. Notice that this object is a group, so hence multiple objects become selected when you select the group. Additionally, some of the objects located here are animated objects. Let's look at this car in the distance. If I go to my selection tool, click on this car, and to quickly zoom to that car, I will use my zoom extends tool, which is located here. So I click that, I will go right to the vehicle. Now notice when I click on this vehicle, if I use my orbit tool, that's that vehicle model, I notice that you see some black points on your timeline. And what this means is that this vehicle, and I'm moving the time bar here, is animated between this point in time and that point in time. So notice it starts to move. Like any other object, this particular object is located here. Here it is. That's the car body, the car wheels, the brake caliper, and so forth. All objects located in the world outliner, and I can turn them on or off just the same. Now lastly, let us talk about the main area in 3ds Max, which is the control panel. Right? And that is located here, and they're controlled by these buttons here. So right now these are tabs, and the first tab it's on is the create tab. Then you have the modify tab, the hierarchy tab, the motion tab, display, and utilities. Now for the most part, what we'll be doing in Max, we'll only be utilizing the create tab and the modify tab. We won't be doing any modeling, but we will be creating objects, for example a camera. Let's zoom out. So to understand how this panel works, let's create a simple object and manipulate it. So to create a box, I need to be under the create tab, and the create tab is, as we mentioned, located here. Now this menu create system works on a hierarchical basis. So the next option down, which would be to select the type of object you want to create. And here we have a few. So here is one type of object, which is geometry. Shapes, like 2D shapes, lights, cameras, helpers, space warps, and systems. These are all things that you can create in your scene because you're under the Create tab. So in choosing the Create tab, we now need to choose what kind of object we want to create. Now for our first go at using the Create tab, we're going to create a geometry. So this will be our selection, which by the way is the default selection. Next, the type of geometry is what is next. Now right now, the type of geometry created is a standard primitive. And if I click this drop down list here, you can see there are different types of geometry. Extended primitives, compound objects, and notice when I choose each one of these, the properties below changes. Now for our case, we're going to be creating an extended primitive. Now next, we're going to select the type of extended primitives in this window below. And notice that's separated in a different box. So we have the hedgerow, for example, the capsule, and so forth. Now what we're going to create is a capsule. That's our object that we want to create. Now the capsule is an extended primitive that is a geometric shape, meaning a 3D shape, and it is something that we can create. So that's how we can track where we are. So we choose a capsule, and notice when you choose a capsule, you get further creation options here. Now we're not going to use these options. What we're going to do is just create it on screen. And notice when you're in the create mode, the button turns blue, and what you do is click, hold, and drag. Don't release it. Click, hold, and drag. And then when it's at a size that you believe is okay, you release. When I release the mouse, I'm now moving the mouse up and down. And then I click once more, and that becomes the object. So let me use my orbit tool, and that's a capsule. Let me use my move tool. I can move capsule around using my UCS. And let me choose my rotate tool. I can rotate on a particular axis, and that is my angle of rotation. By the way, quick tip, let me undo that. You can snap to different angles of rotation, and that is located here. So when I click this button, notice I now snap every 5 degrees. Let's get that to 90. Let's go back to my move tool, move it up. And there we go. Let me frame in on it and orbit. Let's zoom out a little bit. So notice how I'm combining all of these motions: zoom, orbit, and so forth. So that takes care of our create tab. Now of course there are many other things that we could create, but let's talk right now about the modify tab, which is located here. Now the modify tab, simply explained, is when something is already on screen, already in your scene, it's already an actual object, then you're able to modify it. So in this case, I created a capsule. The name of the object is Capsule 001. Notice it's highlighted here, and it's also showing in the world outliner that I have Capsule 1 selected. Then below that, I have some parameters that I am allowed to change. So I can change the radius and so forth. Now, changing parameters in Max. 3D Max encourages a kind of using the spinner to change the properties instead of typing them in. So how you use these spinners is you click, hold, and drag up or down. So that's me changing the radius. I can also change the height. I can change the number of sides. Now notice I'm not seeing the sides here. I'm not seeing the polygons that make up the sides. And that is because I need to change my the way how I'm viewing the object. Currently, if I look under default shading, remember those viewport options that is located up top. So if I look on my viewport shading, I see that I'm looking at default shading, but I could look at wireframe. Can't see much there. Could also look at hidden line, and when you see that, it just means it's loading the textures. So just give it a minute and these checker patterns will disappear, or maybe not. Oh, there we go. Right. So now notice now in hidden mode I can now see the polygons that make up the shape. There we go. I can see the polygons that make up pretty much any shape. But for the capsule, if I now change the sides, I can increase or decrease the amount of polygons. I can also change the height segments and so forth. Okay, so that was a quick overview of the create and modify tab. Now those are the two most popular tabs we're going to be using. So that is a quick overview on manipulating the 3ds Max software.